I haven't been well for a while. Nothing serious. Really low blood pressure. So low energy. Been sleeping a lot. Been reading a lot. And some of the stuff I read was on a subject I would not normally read about. It had to do with the pecking order of the orcas at SeaWorld San Diego. And the reason why I do not read about this kind of stuff is because, number one, I don't have any respect for these people in SeaWorld San Diego and their opinions. And outside orca experts, sometimes I find their opinions hard to deal with. The only people I think that are really strong on the detrimental effects of captivity on orcas is PETA. None of these articles were written by PETA. So what they were saying was, in every one of them, was that orcas like Kalia and Orchid or Shika and Kalia were the dominant females in SeaWorld San Diego. I mean, that's outrageous. Okay? And you might think I'm biased because I have this friendship and bond and massive love for her, and all that is true. It is not why I'm saying this, however. It is because of all the things that I have seen Corky do over the decades that I have never seen another orca do before. Not ever. But I understand the misconception. She can have problems with Ulysses if they're not kept separate. And she has had contentious relationships with female orcas, mainly females with children. But then there's all these things that she does that no other orca has done before. And I think a lot of these things fly under the radar. I don't think they're noticed enough or much, especially by the outside orca experts. I think the people in SeaWorld San Diego see them loud and clear. And you have to take into account who Corky is. She is a northern resident orca, 100%. She was close to 5 years old when she was captured. She was fully indoctrinated into what it meant to be a female in a close-knit family, that pod of hers. She hunted with that pod. She shared food and knew how to feed herself. The language she learned. She has the mentality of pod within her and has never lost it. It is intact. And she has brought that to SeaWorld San Diego. And I know she spent 17 years in Marineland, but for the last going on 35 years, she has brought all of that with her to SeaWorld San Diego. So, okay, I'm going to give you a few examples of the things I'm talking about that I've never seen another orca do. Corky has her own workout routine. I'm not talking about the blue balls or the blue buckets. I'm talking about Corky actually works out. And in the winter months when it's really slow, and I go there early, a lot of times the security guards will let me in. And I'll be the only one sitting in those stands. And I can't tell you how many times, on and off, throughout the decades, I have watched Corky come into that performance tank. There be like 2 or 3 orcas in there. And she will get them to leave. Please leave. It's time for me to do my thing. And they leave. And then she proceeds to do her regimen. And this is what it is. She swims as close as she can to the outside of the parameter of that performance tank. And she does lap after lap after lap. I also have my opinions about why she does it. Number one, I think she does it to maintain her sanity. Number two, I think she does it to keep herself as fit as possible. And number three, I think she needs downtime from the other orcas. She has pod mentality. The others do not. She needs alone time to chill out. Now, I could be wrong, completely wrong. But she's been doing this forever. Okay? And that's not the only way I have seen her bend orcas to do her will. The other time was, it's my most photographed event, and I've talked about it many times, but it can't be overstated. Corky rounded up Shuka and Makani and brought them to the platform to do her bidding. Okay? And she stayed off of the platform herself. She didn't put her face on the platform and click and whistle. She had Makani and do it. Makani and Shuka do it separately. Right? And all the while she said, I'm having this experience with her that's totally draining me and that I don't understand. So I got to get a hold of Mon Noblet to explain it to me. But when she is done with this, she signals to both of them that it's time to leave, which is totally fine with Shuka. Now, Makani, the poor little guy, he was so excited. He didn't want to leave, and he kind of put his face back up on the podium, the platform. But Corky gently came over, nudged his face off of that platform, and sent him on his way. I've never seen another orca do that. And she has even, very rarely, but I've seen her do it, she's gotten the trainers to bend their will to her. There was this day that I went to see them, and Corky was in tank 2. All the gates were locked. So I go to the dine with tank. She can't get to me. I go to the show, and it's the Keaton Yulee show. And because of her relationship with Ulysses, there's no way she's getting into that show, right? Well, the entire time the show is going on, Corky is throwing an absolute fit. She is banging and slamming and thrashing about. I could hear it from the stands. About 5 minutes before showtime, this trainer comes over the speaker and says, Corky wants to come in. We're gonna let her in. I was flabbergasted. Trainers do not reward behavior like that. They want this iron grip control on them. They will spirit them away to another tank. But not this day, and not with Corky. They opened up the gate. On the other side, she swam full bore into the stadium and did a flip right in the air, right in front of me, where I was sitting. She was going to say hi. She was going to be closer. And there was no problem with Yulee. She stayed for a couple minutes and then she swam out and back into tank 2. I've never seen another orca do that. Never. It doesn't happen. But then there's these relationships that she has inside SeaWorld San Diego. And, okay, Ulysses. He's a male. They're different from females. They're so dependent on their mothers and their matriarchs. And Ulysses was like around 3 when he was kidnapped. And his mother might have even been the matriarch of his pod. We don't know. We'll never know. So he's captured, taken to Spain, Barcelona, I think, and is kept in isolation for 13 years. No other orcas, no other nothing. All he knows is he's been taken from his mom, and now he's all alone. And getting more problems because of it, emotionally, psychologically. And then he's taken to SeaWorld San Diego, and I have my own opinions about what happened. I mean, he took one look at Corky, an older female, and went instantly resentful. You're not going to take the place of my mom. You're not going to take the place of my matriarch. I don't care who you are. And would attack her, rake her, anytime he got the chance. Now, I can say this. SeaWorld San Diego is pretty freaking good at keeping them apart. Okay? And then there is the relationship that we all know about between Corky, Orchid, and Orchid's mother. Orchid loved Corky. Orchid's mother hated Corky because of it. All right? And this one day, Orchid's mom went full bore to ram into Corky, missed Corky, hit the wall, and ended up fatally injuring herself and ended up dying. And what did Corky do? Corky took Orchid under her wing and became her surrogate mom. That's what Corky did. Because she has pod mentality. All right? Then there's what happened with Makani. Makani, about 3 years ago, went missing for a total of 10 months. I was very worried about him. I didn't know what happened to him, and there was no way to find out through SeaWorld because those people don't let anything out. 10 months later, I think I see him, so I start yelling his name, and I start yelling other orcas' names, and 3 of them came, and they ran into each other. And I was scared for a minute because I thought they could have possibly have injured themselves, but they didn't. And as they pulled apart and separated, up pops Makani's tail, and he waves at me. And that's another thing I got crap about because I have pictures of this. I got crap about it, That wasn't Makani. He didn't wave at you. I'm so over this stuff. But anyways, when we were done, I was done seeing that he really was okay and saying hi. I said hi to him. He said hi to me. Here comes Corky. And she swims up to these 3 orcas, and it was like, get out. I want to hang out with Debbie. And they left. Even Makani. Now, name me another orca that you know of that has done any of that stuff. Any of it. There isn't one. There is only Corky, the queen. And once those 3 orcas were gone, Corky and I spent about 20 minutes hanging out by ourselves. We had the lower stands separating us, but we could see each other just fine. And she was rubbing her body up against the glass, popping her head up, having this great conversation, Of course, it's all one-sided. I'm doing all the talking. And every once in a while, she'd cock her head like she's intently listening. And it's the kind of visit that I'm used to having with Corky when we are able to be one-on-one. Very special. And then she took off to do her laps. Right? Later on, I find out what happened to Makani. Raking. Another orca had raked Makani severely. He had to be in the med pool for a long time. What did Corky do? Corky has taken Makani under her protection. He has not been raked by another orca since. And he was one of the orcas that was in the performance tank with Corky in August when I went to see her after her attack. That was in there almost the entire time up until like the very end. And then there's Ike. Ike had a hard childhood. His mother's Katina. His father is Tillicum. Katina is the most successful mother of orcas born in captivity in SeaWorld's history. And for some reason, Ike was not close with Katina or his siblings, except for one brother, I think Tura. I'm not sure. I'm sorry. I'm not really good with these names. And then 4 years later, he's even taken from Tura because SeaWorld has loaned out Ike to Marineland in Canada. I mean, are you serious? Really? And then a few years later, SeaWorld gets word that Ike is being severely abused. I mean, SeaWorld is worried that Ike is getting severely abused. I'd hate to think what was happening to Ike during that time. All right, for SeaWorld to need to go rescue him, which they did. Did they bring him back to his mother at SeaWorld Orlando? No. They brought him to SeaWorld San Diego. And Ike needed a maternal figure. Someone, a female to be close to. Who did he find? Who did he seek out? Corky. And he was the other orca that was in that tank the entire time on August 22nd. They hang out a ton, Corky and Ike. They're together constantly. And they do a lot of shows together. And then there's this job that SeaWorld has tapped onto Corky on various times throughout the decades. Now, like I said, until this past 5 years, I haven't really been big on names. So I don't remember the years. I don't remember the orcas' names. The only one I can speak about with any kind of certainty is what happened with Shuka. But they always choose Corky to do this. Shuka was a female in isolation. No contact with other orcas for years. And when they purchased her, they were very worried about how she would interact with the other orcas. So just like in decades past, they chose Corky to help Shuka. They put Corky and Shuka alone in a tank. Why did they do that? Why does SeaWorld San Diego tap Corky with this job? Because they know Corky is the only one capable of making an orca like Shuka feel comfortable again. She's gentle enough. She's compassionate enough. She has the mentality of Pod to acclimate an orca into feeling comfortable around other orcas again. SeaWorld San Diego has never asked any other orca to do that. Only Corky. Only the queen. And Shuka and Corky are also very tight, as is Corky and Orchid. So I have this painting. It was painted by Monoblet. And there's this saying I have for Corky. Mother of none, matriarch to all. Now, I know full well that is not a pod in there, and that I know that Corky is not a matriarch. But because of who she is, because of her pod mentality, she is the best shot in there. And Monoblet painted this picture for me. She did a great job. And who am I? Okay, I'm nobody. I have no education. I am not a marine biologist. I'm not an orca expert. I'm just this witness that's watched all this stuff. So I do not have the qualifications to make this statement, but I'm going to make it anyway. Corky is the dominant female in SeaWorld San Diego, hands down, and a story. Regardless of her difficult relationship with Ulysses, regardless of her contentious relationships with jealous mother orcas and their children. All right. So because of those things, it would be easy for people to look at Corky and not see who she really is. That because when she's attacked, she will not attack back. Orcas in pods don't attack one another, okay? So she will flee by swimming away, or she will escape by leaping onto a ledge. She's not aggressive towards her own, whether they accept her or not. It's the way Corky's built. You see? So, and, who knows? Who knows what set Kalia off that day? Nakai's death? Still grieving Amaya? Having lingering resentment over Amaya? Because Amaya loved Corky. She might have been having lingering resentment about... We'll never know. We will never know. But Corky is a unifier. She's a peacemaker. She is not a matriarch, but she's the closest thing that group of orcas is ever going to have, even though it's not possible. So to me, she is the dominant orca at SeaWorld San Diego and will always be the queen.